Chapter 3159. Gravel Hill Zhang Mansion. Who killed my baby daughter? Looking at the messy mansion and Zhang Guihong's corpse that had been cut in half, Zhang Yekuan seethes with anger. He ruthlessly smashes the head of his old subordinate with a punch. Trash. A bunch of useless trash. They actually let someone kill my Hong-er under their eyes. Kill this group of trash for me, don't leave a single one alive. The veins on Zhang Yekuan's forehead bulge, the fat on his oily face trembles violently, and his eyes, which have been squeezed into slits, reveal a monstrous killing intent. To be able to behave atrociously in my Zhang mansion, and also easily kill Hong-er and swagger away, these two villains are certainly not natives of Gravel Hill. Insignificant criminals that were thrown in by the floating island actually dare to be so arrogant. So vicious. Someone pass down my order. Investigate all the new refugees in Gravel Hill this month. If you find anything suspicious, immediately arrest them. Behind him, the outer disciples wearing mountain split sex attire promptly bow and obey. Suddenly, a middle-aged man comes forward and respectfully says, "Steward Zhang, your words have reminded this disciple of something. 15 days ago my nephew and his companions entered Mount Yunluo to hunt the magnificent beast, but they all died inside. The wounds on their bodies are also sword wounds, exactly the same as the ones on Mrs. Body." Zhang Yekuan suddenly turns around. "Chong Hao, is what you said true?" "It's absolutely true. This disciple has been tracking down the murderer of my nephew these days. This disciple is absolutely not mistaken about those sword wounds." Zhang Yekuan grits his teeth and says, "Then investigate Mount Yunluo as well. Bring me all the people who entered and left Mount Yunluo 15 days ago. Also, go to the ghost market and secretly issue a bounty. Whoever can provide information on these two villains will be rewarded with a month's worth of rations. Whoever can bring these two villains to Mountain Split Sect will be rewarded with a year's worth of rations. Daring to kill my daughter and destroy my mansion, I will make you beg for death." Mayan once again returns to the ghost market. However, she didn't expect that she would be targeted by a thief before she could find the materials needed to break the array. Mu Yan's character has always been that if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll teach them a good lesson. However, she looked at the little boy who had fallen to the ground and was looking at her with a face full of fear. He really couldn't bear to teach him a lesson. The little boy looked to be no more than 6 or 7 years old, and he was so skinny that he looked like a bag of bones. When she was caught stealing, she couldn't even say a word to beg for mercy. Tears silently flowed down from her eyes. His body naturally curls up into a ball, as if waiting for Mayan to beat him up to vent her anger. Li Weiran said excitedly, "Mu Yan, how do you want to deal with this thief? Steam, boil or fry him? By the way, I also know a kind of torture called grooming, which is to use a red-hot iron comb." The little body that was curled up on the ground trembled violently. Finally, he couldn't help but grab the hem of Mayan's clothes, and let out a low, plaintive cry for mercy. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Big sister, I beg you to spare me. I didn't want to, but my mother is sick. She has been hungry for several days. I don't have any way, woo." The deliberately suppressed sobbing sound was so tear-inducing. However, in the ghost market, this kind of desolate and sorrowful scene was nothing more than a common sight. The people coming and going basically wouldn't even give it a glance. Chapter 3160. Mu Yan crouches down, grabbing the boy's collar and lifting him up. "Where is your mother?" The boy shows a frightened expression. "Big sister, I was wrong, I was really wrong. You can punish me, but I beg you don't hurt my mother, okay? Big sister, I beg you." Tears like a broken string of beads patter down, washing away the dirt on the boy's face. Mu Yan discovers that the little boy's skin is very white, and his appearance is exceptionally delicate and cute. He seems to be out of place with the other children in the ghost market. She lightly says, "I'm a doctor, maybe I can cure your mother's illness. But if you're not willing, then forget it." The little boy is obviously stunned, forgetting to cry for a moment. Mu Yan has already put him down, turning to leave. The little boy suddenly comes to his senses, rushing over to hug her leg. I'm willing, big sister, no doctor, please treat my mother. We're too poor, we don't have the money to treat my mother's illness. It must be the heavens taking pity on me and my mother. That's why I met you, doctor. Your great kindness, the little monkey, will remember it for a lifetime. As long as you cure my mother, I will serve you like an ox or a horse." Yes, this delicate and pretty little boy has a very casual name, Little Monkey. He was born and raised in the ghost market. For as long as he can remember, there was only his mother by his side. As for his father, the little monkey has never seen him, let alone know who his father is. According to the little monkey, his mother really has it hard. In addition to taking care of him, she also has to take care of a group of sick relatives. A few days ago she finally collapsed from exhaustion. The little monkey went to the ghost market to find a doctor. However, even after spending all of the family's savings, he still couldn't cure her. Now that his mother is on the verge of death, the little monkey is also about to starve to death. In desperation, he had to come out to steal. Listening to the little monkey's low and not deliberately sad narration. Lying on Mu Yan's shoulder, the little chick sobs, very touched. Goo 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 goo, in this world only a mother is good. A child with a mother is like a treasure. A child without a mother is like a blade of grass. Mom, this little brother is too pitiful, can you save his mother? Let him be as happy as Huang Huang. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. This stupid chicken had matured quite a bit compared to when it had just hatched. Now they could even understand simple stories. Most importantly, she was especially sentimental. She had no resistance to those melodramatic stories and grudges. Every time he would pester the little phoenix to read it to him, and then he would burst into tears. Hee Mu Yan, you wouldn't be so stupid as to repay evil with good, right? Li Weiran's laughing voice sounded in her ears. Mu Yan turns her head to look. She felt that even if her eyes were covered with red silk, she could still see the mocking expression on his face. As a result, Mu Yan gave him 4 words. I'm a senior minister. The little monkey looked at Li Weiran timidly and carefully grabbed the corner of Mu Yan's clothes. It was obvious that in this short period of time he was already very dependent on Mu Yan. Li Weiran looked at this scene and laughed softly. Then he stroked the red silk on the bridge of his nose and slowly followed. The smile on his face was so cold and evil. The ghost market actually occupied a very large area. The little monkey took Mu Yan and the others through the crisscrossing alleys for a while before they arrived at the little monkey's house. Chapter 3161. That is, if that dilapidated building with almost no roof tiles can be considered as a home. Mu Yan follows the little monkey into the house. A damp and moldy smell hits her nose. Then she sees a pale woman lying on the bed. This woman is really a beauty. Her snow-white hair and curly eyebrows, even though she is already old, it can't hide her charming charm. But at this moment the beauty is also very haggard. In addition to her pale complexion, her chapped lips are blue and purple. Moreover, there are festering scars on her exposed neck and arms. Most of her original beauty has been destroyed. Mu Yan frowns and walks forward, holding the woman's hand. The more she feels the pulse, the tighter her brows furrow. At this time, the little monkey comes over with 2 bowls of water, one of which is carefully given to Li Weiran. Li Weiran's mouth hooks up into a faint smile. He actually takes the water and drinks it in one gulp. The little monkey immediately shows a happy smile. Then he brings the other bowl of water to Mu Yan. Looking at Mu Yan's tightly knitted brows, his little face shows a sad expression. Big sister, you don't have to feel embarrassed. All the doctors said that my mother's illness can't be cured. I'm already very grateful that you're willing to see her. Big sister, drink some water. Mu Yan lets go of the unconscious woman's hand, takes the broken bowl and slowly takes a sip. The water that enters her mouth has a salty smell. But water resources in the ghost fair have always been scarce. Even this kind of water with a bad taste is already a treasure. Mu Yan sips the water while observing the scene in the house. There is a broken wooden door on the west side, slightly blown open by the wind. She can see several figures lying on the ground inside. The little monkey whispers, Big sister, I told you before, these are my mother's relatives. They have been sick for many years, and it has always been my mother who took care of them. Bang! The porcelain bowl in Mu Yan's hand suddenly falls to the ground, shattering into pieces. Her face is also dyed with a layer of paleness. Her body seems to be imprisoned, unable to move. And in front of her is the little monkey, who just had a sad and timid expression. He slowly opens his mouth, revealing his snow-white teeth. Big sister, what's wrong with you? Are you unable to move? Mu Yan's voice was slightly hoarse as she asked, Did you drug the water? Aha, you finally found out. But it's too late. Little monkey looked at Mu Yan, then at Li Weiran, who was leaning against the wall with a faint smile. His childish face was filled with a smile that did not match his age. I like idiots like you who just came from the outside the most. You don't even know the rules of survival in Shattered Rock. Just cry a little and she'll take the bait. Big sister, I beg you to spare me. My mother is sick, I had no choice but to steal things. He imitated the way he cried and begged Mu Yan, and then he laughed wildly. Ha! If I cry like this for a while, won't your sympathy be overflowing? Can't wait to be the savior of the world? Creak. The half-closed door was pushed open. A man's rough voice came from inside. Little monkey, you're getting more and more capable. These two look like big fat fishes. If we kill them, we'll be full for a long time. Behind the door, a few short figures slowly moved out. Yes, move. Chapter 3162. 1 second. Remember. LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Because these people's hands and feet seemed to be paralyzed, unable to stand up. They couldn't even crawl normally. They could only rely on their elbows to move forward bit by bit. But they were clearly used to this. Their tattered clothes couldn't hide the scars and calluses on their hands and feet. Dragging such broken bodies, they crawled out from the inside in the blink of an eye. The light from outside shone on their faces. Only then did Mu Yan see that there were more than 10 men. Every one of them had the tendons of their arms and legs broken, so they could only crawl. Moreover, they seemed to have been living like this for many, many years and had long become accustomed to it. Their faces were incomparably haggard and thin, full of traces of hardships. But between their brows, one could still see the valiance and heroism of the past. Seeing them come out, the little monkey, who was clearly just a child, picked his teeth with a piece of straw and said with disdain, "What do you know? These two are more than just two big fish, they are also my little monkeys, guarantee for a meteoric rise." What do you mean? The little monkey cast a sidelong glance at Li Weiran, and said with confidence, "Do you know that Mountain Split Sect has already issued a wanted order throughout the entire Rocky Hill to find the murderer of that fat woman Zhang Guihong? When I first saw this gigolo in Chi City, I immediately recognized him. You're the boy toy that Zhang Guihong fancied at that time, right?" Li Weiran, who was treated as a pretty boy and a boy toy, touched his face innocently. He turned towards Mu Yan and curled his lips. His light pink lips opened and closed slightly, silently spitting out 3 words. "It's all your fault." The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitched and she ignored him. The little monkey continued to speak excitedly. "When I found them earlier, I informed Mountain Split Sect. Now they're bringing people over. Now that I've personally captured these two, as long as we hand them over, guess how much reward Mountain Split Sect will give us?" The few men who were crawling over were stunned, their eyes flashing with humiliation and hatred. But it was quickly replaced by a compromising smile. "That's great, Mountain Split Sect will definitely sell the people for a good price. At least for the next year and a half, we won't have to worry about food and drink." "That's right. This way Rui Nyang won't have to work so hard. It's been a long time since boss has nourished his body. We must make him eat more this time." However, little monkey's face darkened when he heard that. He glared fiercely at the door and was about to speak. The woman on the bed frowned slightly and woke up. Mother, you're awake." The sinister and cunning look on the little monkey's face instantly disappeared without a trace. He threw himself at the beautiful woman and carefully lifted her up. "Mother, how do you feel? Are you hungry? Don't worry, we'll have food and money soon. I will never let you go hungry again." The beautiful woman's face was pale. Just a small movement caused her breathing to quicken and her chest to heave violently. She looked around the room and saw Mu Yan sitting on the edge of the bed and Li Weiran beside her. Startled, she asked, "You two are?" The little monkey said proudly, "Mother, these two people are wanted criminals that the Mountain Splitting Sect wants to capture. It wasn't easy for me to trick them and even gave them the bone-softening powder. Now that they can't move at all, we just need to hand them over to the Mountain Splitting Sect and we won't have to worry about food and drink in the future." Chapter 3163. Saying that, he tells the story of how he tricked Mayan and the little boy, like he's presenting a treasure. In the end, he grabs the beautiful woman's hand, his big eyes full of expectation. "Mother, when we have money, I'll go find the best doctor in Gravel Hill. He'll definitely be able to cure your illness." "No, you can't." Hearing that, the beautiful woman suddenly becomes excited. What did mother teach you before?" Even if you're poor and bitter, you can't do such a heartless thing. If you're just swindling money and food, mother won't say anything. But they're kind enough to help you believe you, and you want to harm their lives. What's the difference between this and an ungrateful animal? Hurry, give them the antidote for cartilage powder. I won't. The little monkey shakes off the beautiful woman's hand. His eyes are red, tears swirling in them. Mother, you've been sick for so long. If you don't have money to eat and see a doctor, you'll die. If I have to watch mother die, I'd rather let someone else die. The beautiful woman can't help but tear up. But she still grits her teeth and says, listen to mother, we'd rather starve to death than do something that crosses our bottom line. Hurry and give them the antidote for cartilage powder. Won't you listen to mother? I won't listen. I won't listen. The little monkey suddenly shouted hysterically, exchanging them for money is a violation of the bottom line. Mother, is it right for you to sell your body and let those men defile you every day in order to support all of us? Is it right to torture you until you are sick all over your body? The child's voice is sharp and piercing, full of reckless madness and resentment. But it's mostly choked with sobs, unable to conceal the pain and despair in his voice. Mayan's eyes flash, her lips slightly move, but in the end she doesn't speak. And she doesn't notice. Not far away, Li Weiran, who has been lazily leaning against the wall, suddenly clenches the rusty iron railing in his hand. The rough rust cuts his white palm, oozing blood, but he doesn't feel it at all. The room falls into a momentary silence. After a long while, a rough and hoarse voice rings out, "Little monkey, how can you say that about your mother? Shut up." The little monkey roared angrily, its tiny body trembling non-stop. "It's all because of you. For so many years, if it wasn't for the fact that my mother had to support you and that wastrel inside, would she have needed to sell her body? If it wasn't for those men defiling her time and time again, how could my mother have contracted a serious illness? How could she give birth to a bastard child like me who doesn't even know who his father is? This is all your fault." Hot tears rolled down the boy's thin face. It also slid down the faces of these handsome men. The lips of the brawny man who spoke just now trembled a few times before he bent his body and buried his face in his chest. It's us trash that dragged Ruanyang down. After so many years, we shouldn't have been alive. Another person also choked with sobs as he beat his chest fiercely. Ruanyang was so valiant and heroic back then, but because of us, she became like this today. We deserve to die. All of us deserve to die. The light in the beautiful woman's eyes dimmed as tears wet her long eyelashes. Mayan could see that in the depths of her eyes, there's grief and despair, as if her heart had died. It's as if there's some kind of conviction that's firmly supporting her. Even under such unbearable torture, she still persevered and endured. Chapter 3164. Don't say any more. The beautiful woman doesn't yell hysterically like them. Instead, she says in a slightly hoarse voice, "Didn't we agree when we first came to Gravel Hill? For boss, no matter what price we have to pay, we are willing to bear it." Her voice is calm. But the hand that was pressed on the bed was clenched so tightly that the tattered bedsheets were crumpled. Obviously, the humiliation and torture she has endured all these years is far from as easy as she says at this moment. "Whether we fall into hell or be consigned to eternal damnation, as long as boss can live, we don't care. Now, because I have the conditions to do it, I'm doing it. If you could do it, wouldn't you have made the same choice?" The dozen or so strong men crawling on the ground are all in tears for a moment, sobbing silently. The beautiful woman blushes and reaches out to caress the little monkey's face. It doesn't matter if Nyang falls into hell, but you can't. For Nyang, you are the best gift that heaven has given me. Nyang hopes that you will always be clean until one day you can follow boss out of here." The little monkey can't bear it anymore. He cries out loud and throws himself into the beautiful woman's arms, hugging her tightly. "Nyang, I thought you hated me. Because I'm the son of those bad guys who forced you. I thought you didn't want to give birth to me." The beautiful woman tightly hugs the little monkey's small body. 2 lines of clear tears slide down her pale cheeks. The moment she raises her head, she meets Mayan's eyes. The beautiful woman's face shows a guilty expression. "I'm sorry I implicated you. The antidote for the bone-softening powder." She hasn't finished speaking when Mayan suddenly raises her hand and stuffs a pill into her mouth. The beautiful woman is caught off guard and swallows the pill with a gudong sound. What did you give my Nyang to eat?" Damn it, weren't they poisoned with the bone-softening powder? Why can this woman still move? She must have fed Ruan Yang poison. Quickly think of a way to make Ruan Yang spit out the poison. The little monkey shouts and pounces towards Mayan. You dare to harm mine Yang, I'll fight you. However, before he could even get close to Mu Yen, he was grabbed by the neck and lifted into the air. Mu Yen slightly lowered her eyebrows and looked at him mockingly. Do you think that because you're young, no matter what bad things you do, you can be forgiven? A slightly evil smile appeared on her face. Looking at your mother's sickly appearance, I know she can't teach you a lesson. Why don't I do it for her? Stop. Let go of the little monkey. Woman, you dare to hurt the little monkey? I'll fight you to the death. The brawny men on the ground roared as they crawled over, their faces filled with panic and worry. As for the beautiful woman who had been fed the pill by Mu Yen, she was clutching her stomach, her body trembling non-stop. She stretched out her trembling hand to save the little monkey, but her hand fell down powerlessly. He could only beg again and again in a low voice, please, please, spare my child. The little monkey's face was red and he kept waving his skinny and muddy hands. He screamed, kill me if you can. Kill me. I'm not afraid of you. Mayan raised her hand and a binding immortal rope flew out from the storage space. It tied the little monkey's hands and hung him on the beam. Chapter 3165. Then Mu Yen turns to look at the little chick. Huang Huang, do you still remember how to teach a disobedient child a lesson? Gagagugu. Jijijijiji. I remember. I want to spank your ass. Take off your pants and spank your ass. Let me do it. Let me do it. Mom, Huang Huang wants to spank this child's ass. When the little chick found out that the little brother he sympathized with had poisoned his mother and brother blindfolded, he was half dead with anger. He felt that his tears were all in vain. He couldn't wait to teach this deceitful child a lesson, but he didn't expect his mother to give him the chance so soon. Goo. The little chick's eyes twinkle and it suddenly makes a strange cry. The plump ball pounced on the little monkey that was hung up in the air. With a tearing sound, the little monkey's pants are taken off, revealing his white butt. The little chick's two big eyes shine. Then he spread his little wings and aimed at the little monkey's white and tender butt, and started to attack from both sides. Pa 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 pa. As it hits, it doesn't forget to dub itself. Hit. 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 The crippled men who rushed over to save the little monkey are dumbfounded. The beautiful woman who almost rolled off the bed is dumbfounded. Even Mu Yen is stunned for a long time before she covers her forehead. Heavens! What kind of a bunch of brats did she take in? Hit 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 hit. Not long after, the little monkey's white butt is swollen. It's bright red like a ripe peach. The little monkey, who has been dumbfounded for a long time, finally realizes what happened. The precocious, lawless little monkey, who has always treated himself as an adult, can't stand this kind of humiliation and finally bursts into tears. As he cries, he twists his red and swollen butt, sobbing, I'm going to kill you, bastard. I'm going to kill you. Mu Yen turns a deaf ear to his cries and curses, waiting for the little chick to get tired before waving at it. The little chick immediately hops into Mu Yen's arms. Unexpectedly, Mu Yen dodged to the side and said in disgust, the feathers that hit this brat's dirty but still dare to pounce on me. Do you think it's easy for me to take a bath? Go wash yourself and dry yourself before coming back to see me. Little Inghu wasn't dejected at all. Instead, it happily ran into the river of stars to wash itself clean. The little monkey, who had finally stopped being beaten, couldn't help but burst into tears again when he heard the words, the dirty buttocks of the naughty brats. He really was older than he looked. But in reality he was only 10 years old. He was still a child. Now that he had suffered a series of blows, he could no longer maintain his mature and steady demeanor, completely revealing his true nature as a child. Mu Yen listens to his cries with great interest. Only then does she take back the binding immortal rope, letting him fall to the ground. In the end, her red butt landed on the ground. The little monkey let out an earth-shattering scream. As he shouted, he hurriedly pulled up his tattered pants that could not cover his entire body. His red and swollen eyes fiercely glare at Mayan. But the moment Mayan raised her hand, she screams in fright and hides behind the table. The few crippled men have clearly never seen this child like this. At this time they can't help but want to laugh. Mu Yen no longer cares about the brat, but turns to look at the beautiful woman. Do you feel better? Chapter 3166. The beautiful woman stares blankly, pressing her hand against her chest, an incredulous expression on her face. The medicine you gave me just now. Mayan smiles in surprise. This medicine can't cure your illness, but it can prolong your life. It's not that your illness can't be cured, but it requires some special herbs. I'm afraid I can't find them for the time being. The two are sitting on the bed talking and their voices aren't heavy. Plus, the room is still reverberating with the little monkey's unreconciled curses. So only the knife-scarred man who's closest to the bed can hear their conversation. He suddenly raises his head, looking at Mayan in bewilderment. After a long while he uses a slightly rough voice to ask, who are you? Mayan doesn't have the time to answer. Suddenly there's the sound of messy and noisy footsteps outside. Immediately after, through the broken window, they can see strong men holding weapons wearing the same clothes. They surround the entire room and even the surrounding alleyways. Bang! The door is directly kicked open. Several figures fiercely rush in. Didn't you say that you caught a wanted criminal of my mountain split sect? Where is he? The room is quiet for a moment. The beautiful woman's eyes reveal anxiety and annoyance. But she still forces herself to calm down, using a slightly gentle voice to say, Masters, are you mistaken? We haven't seen any wanted criminal. At this time, Li Weiran is leaning against the corner of the wall, his whole body sunk into the shadows, making it hard for people to discover him. But Mayan is sitting next to the beautiful woman, and her appearance is so dazzling that it can't be concealed. So the mountain split sect disciples that rush in immediately focus their attention on her. Who is this? The beautiful woman pretends to be calm. This is my younger sister, she just came to see me from her husband's house today. Bullshit. The leader roars. Do you think we're stupid? This person's clothes are so luxurious but you're dressed in rags. If your sister is really so rich, why would you need to squeeze into this ghost fair's refugee cave? The person behind him comes forward with a fiendish expression. Disgraceful thing, you actually dare to play with the people of my mountain split sect. Are you tired of living? Saying that, he tries to pull the beautiful woman's hair. Don't hurt my mother. The little monkey screamed and rushed out like a cannonball, standing in front of the beautiful woman to protect her. She and him, they are the wanted criminals of the mountain splitting sect. You have to arrest them, not my mother. With the little monkey pointing at them, everyone from the mountain splitting sect finally noticed Li Weiran's existence. There was no need for confirmation. Just by looking at the symbolic and dazzling red ribbon, the people from the mountain split sect confirmed that these two were the people the manager wanted to capture. Sure enough, it was these two audacious villains. As long as we can bring him back, Steward Zhang will definitely reward us well. Luckily we are in charge of the ghost fair. I didn't expect to catch them so easily. The leader coughed lightly and looked coldly at Mu Yen and Li Weiran. I heard from Steward Zhang that these two thugs are extremely cruel. They killed all the servants in the Zhang residence by themselves. Everyone, don't let your guard down and let them escape. Senior brother, don't worry. The people in the Zhang residence are all trash that don't know martial arts. How could they compare to the official disciples of our mountain split sect's outer sect? Now that we have so many people plus the disciples from the sect who received the news and are rushing over, I'm afraid that the entire ghost fair has already been surrounded. Even if they grew wings, they still wouldn't be able to escape. Chapter 3167. Laughing and joking, but they still carefully spread out their formation surrounding Mu Yen and Li Weiran. The beautiful woman's eyes are filled with anxiety and guilt, but her gaze sweeps over the little monkey, the half-closed door, and the crippled brawny man on the ground without any ability to resist. In the end, she painfully closes her eyes. In that instant, she feels that the beliefs and dignity of the first half of her life have all become a joke. Reward. What happened to the promised reward? The little monkey clenches his teeth, throwing himself in front of the leader. I was the one who reported these two wanted criminals. Didn't you say that we would be given a year's worth of rations? Just what qualifications do you lowly commoners have to receive a reward? The leader kicks him away. Just now, you tried in vain to cover for these two criminals. I still haven't settled the score with you. Hee hee, senior brother, although this little bitch is a bit old, she still has her charm. A vulgar-looking mountain split sect disciple grabs the beautiful woman's hair, a wretched smile on his face. Why don't we bring this woman back as well? The leader laughs heartily. Sure, if you're interested, there's no harm in bringing her back to plague. Bastard, let go of Ruane Young. Mother, you're not allowed to touch my mother, scram. The little monkey's eyes redden, throwing caution to the wind, grabbing onto the mountain split sect disciple's thigh, ruthlessly biting down. Ah! Bastard. You actually dare to bite me. That mountain split sect disciple feels a sharp pain coming from his thigh, and instantly flies into a rage. He picks up the little monkey and gives it 2 big slaps from both sides. The little monkey spits out a mouthful of blood and even his teeth tumble down. But that disciple still doesn't feel satisfied and grabs the little monkey's neck, lifting him up high, and is about to smash him to the ground. Stop. You're not allowed to hurt the little monkey. If you dare to hurt my ear, I'll kill you. The beautiful woman and the crippled brawny men all go crazy when they see this scene. They recklessly throw themselves over. Even if their bodies are weak, even if they don't have limbs, it's as if they want to perish together with the mountain split sect people. Especially after the beautiful woman took Mayan's medicine, it was clear that she had regained some of her strength. At this moment, he pounced onto the body of the mountain split sect disciple who was holding onto the little monkey, and actually grabbed onto his hair, fiercely biting towards his ear. Ah! The man let out a shrill scream. The place where his left ear used to be was now empty and fresh blood was gushing out. As for the beautiful woman who was just a moment ago, her face was twisted as she chewed on the ear that she had bitten off. His appearance was truly like that of a malicious ghost. The leading disciple of the mountain split sect was shocked at first, then he suddenly pulled out his long sword and fiercely slashed. Immediately, the crippled man closest to him was bleeding profusely. A hole had been pierced through his abdomen. However, the crippled man acted as if he didn't know pain at all. He directly grabbed the long sword and grinned hideously. The actions of the leading disciple seemed to have lit a fuse. The other mountain split sect disciples also took out their weapons and charged towards the beautiful woman and the crippled robust man. Soon, the beautiful woman was grabbed by the hair, dislocated her limbs and lifted up. Bitch, bitch, bitch. You actually dared to bite off my ear, bitch, I'll kill you. The man carrying the beautiful woman was unable to restrain his anger, and his eyes were practically spitting fire. He actually grabbed the beautiful woman's hair, and fiercely slammed her against the wall at the side. Chapter 3168. Mayan's eyes turn cold, the 7 absolute swords faintly discernible in her palm. However, at this moment, a figure flits before her eyes. Then, a faint, strange noise resounds in this narrow, dilapidated room. Mayan's nose faintly smells the scent of fresh blood. She looks up in astonishment, only to see that the chests of the mountain split sect disciples, who were still fiendish just a moment ago, all have huge bloody holes. Some of their hearts have been directly crushed. Some of their intestines have been pulled out, dripping with blood as they hang outside. But they're still in a daze, as if they simply didn't have the time to realize what's happening to their bodies. 3 breaths, just 3 breaths later. All the mountain split sect disciples in this dilapidated room have collapsed, dying without a complete corpse, dying with remaining grievances. The little monkey is scared silly. The beautiful woman and the disabled brawny man are all dumbfounded. Even Mayan's eyes widen, unable to come back to her senses for a moment. A slender figure rose in front of her like a wisp of green smoke, and gradually condensed into a solid form. Liwei. Mayan's pupils shrink, her gaze falling on his hand. Drip, drip. His slender fingers are already completely covered in blood. Glaring bright red drops drip by drip from his fingertips. That light gray coarse robe was already stained with blood at some point in time. Just like those blooming flowers. The surrounding air is filled with a kind of bone-chilling heat and gloomy coldness. Mayan's entire body tenses up in a split second. The extreme nervousness made her summon the 7 absolute swords unconsciously. She can feel that the youngster in front of her, this Li Weiran of unknown origin, whether he's really blind or not, is currently in a very dangerous situation. If she's the slightest bit careless, it won't just be the mountain split sect disciples who will die, but everyone in this room. However, before she can move, an ice-cold and sticky hand grabs her wrist. Mayan hears a low, hoarse voice ringing in her ears. You see, I've already killed them all. No one will bully you anymore. So don't leave me, okay? The 5 fingers on her wrist suddenly tighten. Mayan can almost hear the sound of her bones being squeezed. Her brows slightly wrinkle and she can't help but struggle a bit. However, it was such a smile. Li Weiran didn't know which part of him was triggered. Why? Why don't you believe that I can protect you? Why is it that no matter how well I do, you're never willing to look back at me? The youngster's face was twisted and his voice was sharp and shrill. Look into my eyes, look. Why wouldn't I dare to look? Mayan thought. Let me see you take off the red scarf on your face. You're blindfolded and you're asking me if I dare to look? Are all perverts so weird? Suddenly, her expression froze and her eyes slightly widened. Because she saw 2 streams of tears of blood slowly flowing down from the red silk covering her eyes. The ferocious expression on the youth's face had vanished. His glistening white skin contrasted with the dazzling scarlet, and it actually reflected a type of sorrowful desolation. Is it because I look too much like that person? Or are you disgusted by my blood-stained hands? Tell me. Who did this guy mistake me for? He was clearly fine just a moment ago, just like how a pervert should be. What stimulated him to suddenly become like this? Mu Yen groans inwardly. The pain from his wrist was getting more and more intense. Chapter 3169. But Mu Yen didn't even dare to move. She was afraid that the slightest movement would provoke the pervert in front of her again. Li Weiran suddenly chuckled. That smile was as bright as usual, but it had a twisted craziness to it. Don't you hate my eyes? Because they were left to me by that man. If I dig them out, you'll be willing to look back at me, right? As he said that, he raised his hand to poke his eyes. Mu Yen jumped in fright. Quick thinking, she took out the dark cloud's spirit flower from her storage ring and stuffed it into Li Weiran's hands along with the jade box. This is your favorite dark cloud spirit flower. Are you sure you don't want to take a look before you dig your eyes out? Li Weiran was stunned. He held the jade box in a fluster and even let go of Mu Yan's hand. Mu Yan let out a long sigh of relief. The youth holding the dark cloud spirit flower had a pure and childlike smile on his face. His voice was soft and slow, as if he was afraid of startling something. Mother, look, it's the dark cloud spirit flower. Mother. Mu Yan's mouth twitched. She wanted to smash this little pervert's head with a punch. He was clearly older than her by a few hundred years. It was fine if he called her sister before, but now he was even calling her mother. You want to be my son, but I don't want you. But very quickly Mu Yen realized that Li Weiran wasn't talking to her. It was more like he was talking to himself. As long as you have the dark cloud spirit flower, you can cultivate, live forever and stay with me forever. Mother, are you happy? Mu Yen silently took a step back. However, just as she moved, Li Weiran suddenly raised his head. Are you afraid of me? Just because my hands are stained with blood? Just because I killed those who bullied you? Just because I'm the little monster in their mouths? Since you're so afraid, I'll kill until you get used to it, okay? As he spoke, he grabbed the air with his blood-stained hand, and a crippled man was lifted into the air by the neck by him. Butcher! Let go of Uncle Yu. The beautiful woman and the little monkey were terrified and wanted to rush over to save him. They had just seen how this demon killed without batting an eye. If their loved ones also died in his hands. Mu Yen suddenly narrowed her eyes, revealing a mocking expression. Enough, Li Weiran, stop pretending. You haven't lost your mind at all. What's the point of playing the fool? The dilapidated house fell into a strange silence. After a long while, the corners of the youth's lips slowly curled up. His head also turned slightly and he asked with an innocent expression. I'm really curious, how did you see through it, Mu Yen? Mu Yen rolled her eyes and stepped forward to grab the jade box in Li Weiran's hands. None of your business. Return my dark cloud spirit flower to me. She thought that Li Weiran would refuse to give it to her. She didn't expect him to obediently let go this time. However, the person moved closer and said in a gentle voice, Everyone who has seen my true face will die. Mu Yen, aren't you afraid? Mu Yen coldly glances at him. Did you really lose your mind and speak nonsense just now? Or was it all an act from the beginning? Li Weiran's expression froze for a moment, then he revealed a bright smile. Guess. From. Mu Yen kicked him away. I'm a normal person, I'm not interested in guessing what a pervert is thinking. Chapter 3170. As they speak, the sound of hurried footsteps comes from a distance. Everyone in the room also suddenly comes back to their senses. Oh no. The little monkey looks at the bloody corpses all over the ground, his face deathly pale. These are all mountain split sex people. They died here. If we're discovered, we're dead for sure. Mother, let's run. The beautiful woman shows a wry smile, but it also carries a trace of relief. She turns to look at Mayan, revealing a pleading expression. Miss, can I trouble you to take my son away? Mother, what nonsense are you talking about? How could I leave you alone? The little monkey shouts. Moreover, you want me to go with this bad woman. I don't want it even if I die. The beautiful woman doesn't even look at the little monkey. She just looks at Mayan and says in a hoarse voice, I know this is very difficult for the miss, and I don't have anything to repay the miss with. Only this dagger can be used as a thank you gift. Seeing the beautiful woman take out the dagger, the several disabled brawny men show shocked expressions. They move their mouths wanting to say something, but in the end they swallow back their words. This dagger may not be of much use in Gravel Hill, but if the miss can leave this place one day, perhaps it can help the miss. I don't ask the miss to always take care of my child, but if one day you really can leave Gravel Hill, I beg you to take him with you. Mother, what are you talking about? The little monkey seems to realize something and can't help but cry. Are you planning to die together with Uncle Butcher and the others? If you die, what's the point of me living? Mother, I don't want to be separated from you even if I die, boo-hoo. The scarred man called Butcher also grits his teeth. Ruan Yong, we can't escape. But you're different, you have the little monkey, you have a new home, and the original vow doesn't count. If you want to die with the boss, we're enough. Right, Ruan Yong, it's enough for us to die with the boss. For so many years you've done enough for us, for the boss. It's time for you to live your own life. Tears fall from the beautiful woman's eyes. Is she willing to abandon such a small child? Of course not. But these brothers have already vowed to live together, to die together. To follow the boss and never leave. How could she break her promise? Ruan Yong chuckled and suddenly pressed a finger on the little monkey's nape. Her hand was weak, but the little monkey was just a child after all. When its acupoint was hit, it soon fell down softly. When he closed his eyes, tears had already wet his thin cheeks. Ruan Yong's face is filled with reluctance as she takes one last look at the child in her arms. Only then does she hand the child and the dagger over to Mayan. However, Muyen didn't take it. The footsteps outside the house were getting closer and closer. It was obvious that a large number of powerful people had surrounded the refugee cave. Voices of fear and unease could be heard outside the house, discussing what had happened. Ruan Yong had an anxious look on her face. Miss, do you still resent the little monkey for lying to you? Please believe me, this dagger is worth more than you think. If you still have anger in your heart, I can let you vent it. Please. Mayan raises her hand and the 7 absolute swords slowly appear. Her lips curled into a cold smile. I'm sorry, but I can't accept your request. Because I changed my mind. Chapter 3171. Ruan Yong and the crippled men were shocked. Butcher instinctively moved over and stood in front of Ruan Yong and the little monkey, afraid that Mu Yen would suddenly hurt them. Ruan Yong gritted her teeth. What does Miss want? Mayan says unhurriedly, it's really too troublesome and a waste of time to go around and buy materials in this ghost market. I just thought of a way to solve this once and for all. I can collect all the resources in the entire gravel mound and choose from them. Ruan Yong said blankly, What way? Mu Yen looked out the window, the 7 absolute swords in her hands emitting a dazzling light. Of course it's to destroy the mountain split sect and become the king of this gravel mound. Ruan Yong, crippled men, you're joking, right? Butcher couldn't help but exclaim, I know you just entered the gravel mound, so it's inevitable that you're arrogant and look down on the mortals here. But you have to know that spirit masters and sword cultivators can't use spiritual power here. You can't even use 10% of your strength, so how are you going to fight against the entire mountain split sect? Mu Yen raised her sword and lightly swept it, causing a loud bang on the roof. Half of the dilapidated house collapsed. How are you going to fight against the entire mountain split sect? She said slowly, Of course I'll beat them until they're convinced. If that's not enough, then I'll just kill them all. In the air, strands of spiritual power swirled around the girl. No. Other than spiritual power, there were other more powerful and vigorous energies. Mu Yan's figure flashed and she leaped onto the roof. Li Weiran also disappeared from his spot. Ruan Yang and Butcher looked at the gray-blue sky above the hole, their eyes widening. They suddenly realized that the two of them were different. They were incompatible with the entire gravel mound from the start. There was no reaction when they took the bone-softening powder. They could easily kill more than 10 mountain-splitting sect disciples. They didn't have a trace of the heavy aura of death that belonged to the refugees of the gravel mound. Ruan Yang. Butcher realized that his voice was hoarse and trembling as he spoke. We've waited for so many years for redemption, the hope that we've been searching for. Maybe we found it today. Ruan Yang's face was pale as she placed the little monkey in her arms on the bed. She dragged her limp body into the inner room, swaying. The light from outside shone into the room, illuminating the silhouette of a man sleeping on the bed. However, Ruan Yang did not walk closer. Instead, she leaned against the door and looked at the man. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Boss. General, you've slept long enough. It's time to wake up. Butcher and the rest had already come to Ruan Yang's side. Each of the 7-feet-tall men couldn't help but have red eyes at this moment. General, did you see that? We've finally found someone who can save you. The 7 ultimate swords were slowly withdrawn. The last drop of blood fell from the tip of the sword, and the translucent sword became crystal clear again. Mu Yan's gaze sweeps over the person lying on the ground. Do you still want to fight? No, I'm not fighting anymore. Heroine. Demoness. No. Please spare my life. The robust men wearing the mountain split sect's disciple attire shook their heads like a rattledrum, the terror in their eyes almost materializing. Mu Yan raises her brows. Didn't you just say that if I dared to injure a mountain split sect disciple, I would absolutely not have a good ending? Chapter 3172. We had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. We were wrong. Female Demon King, you're invincible. How could our mountain split sect be your opponent? These people were just short of crying themselves hoarse. This woman was really too strong. She alone took care of all the mountain split sect disciples surrounding the ghost market. The key point was that this was already 70% of mountain split sect's fighting strength. Even 70% was taken care of so easily. What about the remaining 30%? How could they not surrender? Li Weiran had unknowingly landed beside Mayan, chuckling. Mayan is really a good person who repaid evil with good. Those people clearly wanted to scheme against you, but in the end, when they shed 2 tears in front of you, you saved them. Such kindness and stupidity, you'll suffer big losses in the future. Mayan coldly looked at him. Li Weiran, did you forget who provoked Zhang Guihong? Who killed the mountain split sect's people first? Who left me a mess? Just who was it? Li Weiran stared blankly. His expression didn't change for a long time. Mayan could feel that the pair of eyes under the red silk were staring at her. Even if this gaze was separated by a layer of cloth, she could still feel the uncomfortably invasive nature. Mayan frowned and was about to speak. But she saw the youth opposite her innocently and cheerfully curl his lips. It seems to be me. So Mayan, did you change your mind because of me and plan to destroy Mountain Split Sect? It turns out that my charm in Mayan's heart is already this great. Scram. Mayan kicked him away. Damn it, could this little pervert be even more narcissistic? What happened next was like a dream to everyone in the Gravel Hill. Especially the Guodapeng brothers. Because Mountain Split Sect sent people to investigate the people who went in and out of Mount Yunluo 10 days ago, they were finally found out. Thus, Guodapeng's family was captured and brought to Mountain Split Sect to interrogate them about Mayan's whereabouts. However, without waiting for the Guodapeng brothers to undergo the torture, the girl who single-handedly killed the cloud beast descended from the sky and directly stepped on Mountain Split Sect's steward, Zhang Yekuan. Zhang Yekuan desperately raised his head and glared at the girl in front of him. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Why can you use spiritual power? Who are you? Mu Yen condescendingly looks at him and chuckles. Do you want to know? Then go to the underworld and ask King Yen Luo. No. You can't kill me. I'm a steward appointed by the Mountain Splitting Sect. Every 3 months, the Mountain Splitting Sect will send people to inspect the crushed rock mound. If you kill me, you won't be able to live either. Mu Yen purses her lips. 3 months, that's too long. I don't want to stay in this damned place for 3 days. As soon as he finished speaking, the 7 ultimate sword flashed and Zhang Yekuan's head was separated from his body. The massacre did not last long. Yes, a massacre. A young girl wielding a long sword single-handedly massacred the sole overlord of Crushed Stone Mound, the mountain-splitting sect. This incident was like a hurricane that swept through the entire Rocky Mound. From the very beginning when he was watching the battle at the Ghost Fair, he pitied this young girl. Later when he saw her kill everyone, he was horrified. Now all that was left was disbelief, and they couldn't summon the slightest bit of respect and submission to him. And this transformation only took a short day. The bright moon hung high in the sky. A girl dressed in men's clothing and wearing an ugly mask stood on a high roof, looking down at the crowd gathered below. As far as she could see, the other people on the Rocky Mound were still anxious and fearful. Chapter 3173. The disciples and lackeys of Mountain Split Sect are already kneeling on the ground in fright. Spare us, female demon queen. We were willing to do whatever you want us to do. We only ask you to spare our lives. That's right. We can serve Steward Zhang like an ox or a horse. No. We'll definitely serve Steward Zhang even more diligently. We're really very useful, please spare us. Mu Yan, enough, all of you shut up. I've gathered everyone in Gravel Hill, there really is something I need you to do. She flips her wrist and a photographic talisman appears between her fingers. Even if they already knew that this girl could use spiritual energy in Gravel Hill, everyone is still stunned by the scene in front of them. The photographic talisman ignites, shining with a bright light. Immediately after, a projection appears in front of everyone. What's written on it are the actual materials and their real drawings. What is this? I heard that the spirit masters outside can record everything they see and then present it on a piece of paper. I thought it was fake. These are the natives of Gravel Hill who have never been in contact with the outside world, and don't know what spiritual energy is. And those cultivators who were abandoned here after their cultivation was crippled, they can't help but clench their fists, the rims of their eyes red. They didn't expect that they would still be able to see people using spiritual energy in their lifetime. Who is this girl? Why can she use spiritual energy in Gravel Hill? Moreover, what does she want to do by looking for the things shown in the photographic talisman? Mu Yan's gaze sweeps over everyone present, and she uses spiritual energy to amplify her voice. My request is very simple. Everyone, even if you have to turn over the entire Gravel Hill, you must find these materials for me. As long as you can find any one of them. Mu Yan raises her hand and a small mountain of cloud bones, cloud beast hides, and vast beast meat appears by her side. These are the rewards. Seeing the things that Mu Yan takes out, the eyes of the people below stare straight. They don't even have the time to investigate where Mu Yan took these things out from. Because this reward is simply too generous. If a year's worth of rations from Mountain Split Sect is already enough to attract everyone to take risks, then these things that Mu Yan takes out are enough to make them go crazy. I seem to have seen a third thing. I have to go to the garbage mountain to look for it. I've also seen a few of them. No, I have to go home and take a look. The crowd was in an uproar. These people even forgot to be afraid of Mu Yan. One by one they excitedly wanted to run home, or immediately go to the garbage mountain, to search. However, at this moment, a man's deep voice came from the crowd. Why are you looking for these things? Mayan looks down and can't help but raise her eyebrows. She saw that Ruan Yang was struggling to push Mutu's wheelchair towards them. In the wheelchair sat a middle-aged man with a face full of stubble. His hands were thin and weak, and it was obvious that the tendons in his arms and legs had been broken just like Butcher and the others. But even so, he still held a pot of wine in his hand and took a sip from time to time. Even if more than half of that mouthful of wine spilled outside, he didn't care. Mu Yan realized that this drunkard was probably the Bosk that Ruan Yang and the Butcher were talking about. At this moment, the attention of the others could not help but be attracted by this question. Chapter 3174. All of them look towards Mu Yan's direction. Mu Yan stares at the drunkard for a long time, then lightly says, "Didn't you already see it? I want to make an array disc. Make an array disc that can break the Gravel Hills enchantment. Xiuxian continent, polar domain. Dimingju, that's enough. Send someone to ask every day, aren't you tired of it? In the quiet Lingxiao hall, an exasperated teenager's voice suddenly resounds. Han Chujio, carrying a subordinate of the Yenyu tribe, comes as fast as lightning. His face is flushed and half of the beard stuck to his lips has fallen off. Because he was too angry, his beard was blown up by the wind. Coupled with his slightly immature face, he looked especially cute and adorable. As soon as Han Chujio lands, he throws the person he is carrying to the ground. As a result, because of carelessness, the beard on his face is pulled off. As soon as Han Chujio looked up, she saw the reflection of her childish and pretty face on the glass pillar of the Divine Wind Palace. He suddenly gets even angrier and kicks the subordinate of the Yenyu tribe. He points to Han Yi and curses, "Han Yi, I'm warning you. Next time if you let your men harass me in the Medicine King Hall, I will poison the entire Yenyu tribe." Han Yi dryly laughs twice, "Medicine King, don't be like this. We are just concerned about your apprentice. After all, she hasn't entered the inheritance space for so long. Bah. Don't put on airs in front of me." Han Chujio disdainfully says, "Di Mingju, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You are coveting my precious apprentice. You want to find her through my inheritance space and take her for yourself. Do you think I will let you, a womanizer, get what you want?" Bang. An explosive grain directly hits Han Chujio's forehead. Elder Chong angrily says, "Xiaojiu, how many times have I told you, you are not allowed to be rude to Jun Shang?" Humph. Han Chujio arrogantly turns his face. "He is not a respectable old man, he dares to covet my delicate baby apprentice." The corner of Chong Lao's mouth twitched and he said in a bad tone, "Han Chujio, with Jun Shang's appearance, strength and background, is he really not worthy of your disciple? Then tell me, where are you going to find a man more outstanding than Jun Shang?" Han Chujio's eyebrows wrinkled and seriously think about it. However, what made him depressed was, fumbling around, he really can't find a man more outstanding than Di Mingju. Bastard. How infuriating. Big I will let my precious disciple be a queen and raise a bunch of pretty boys. Han Chujio's neck stiffened. However, before he could finish his sentence, the expression of the man who had been indifferent all this while suddenly darkened. A creepy cold pressure instantly swept Han Chujio's body. Di Mingju uses an almost tranquil voice to slowly say, "Say it again?" Han Chujio suddenly withered. "Can't I just say it?" "Di Mingju, why on earth do you come every day to ask about my disciple's news? If you want to pursue my disciple, then go to the Shuzhen continent by yourself." Humph, anyway, her disciple has a fiancé, she certainly won't take a fancy to Di Mingju, this peacock. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if she really takes a fancy to Di Mingju, it's better than her previous fickle and two-timing fiancé. Han Yi sighs and says, "Do you think Jun Shang doesn't want to go to the Shuzhen continent? It's because the space barrier was destroyed and the heaven stairway collapsed that we are so worried." Chapter 3175. What? The heaven stairway collapsed? Han Chujio says in disbelief, "How is that possible? Then how can my good disciple ascend?" As they are talking, they hear a voice coming from outside the room. Jun Shang, the island master of Linglong Island, requests an audience. "Yanran, what is she doing here?" Han Yi says somewhat unhappily. In fact, Linglong Island has a transcendent status in the polar domain. The former island master and his wife have superb cultivation, proficient in support and fighting, and have always had a good relationship with the polar domain's imperial court. And after Yu Yanran took over the position of island master, although her strength isn't high enough, she has always been low-key and calm, not as domineering as Tianyi men. Therefore, the people of the polar domain have always had a good impression of Linglong Island and Yu Yanran. However, this time, the disaster of Pillar of Sky collapsing makes Han Yi and the others' impression of her take a sharp turn for the worse. In the past, Yu Yanran had always displayed an extraordinary and refined appearance, aloof from worldly affairs. It's almost impossible to see that she has any feelings for Di Mingju. But now that she knows that Di Mingju has a sweetheart, she looks like she's been betrayed. And that Deputy Island Master Huang, he opens his mouth and says that the polar domain can't distinguish right from wrong, ungrateful, making their Jun Shang look like an ungrateful scumbag. What kind of joke is this? Their Jun Shang clearly didn't even give that Yu Yanran a proper look. Han Yi is filled with righteous indignation as he thinks. He hears his Jun Shang coldly reply, "I won't see her." However, two people have already appeared outside the door. Junshang, Yenran Fairy has come from afar. How can you so stiffly refuse to see her? The one speaking is a slightly aged female voice. Immediately after, they see a middle-aged woman with graying temples, slowly leading Yu Yenran into the main hall. Compared to the other people of the polar domain who are respectful and fearful of Di Mingju, this middle-aged woman is clearly more intimate. She looks at Di Mingju with eyes full of love and pity. But when Han Yi and the others see her, their expressions turn cold. They promptly bow and say, "Greetings, Sect Leader Tong." I didn't expect Sect Leader Tong to come out so soon. Sect Leader Tong's original name is Tong Huinyan, and she can be considered as a wet nurse who served Di Mingju as he grew up. As she was talented and experienced, she slowly rose from a lowly maidservant to a leader. Everything in the Lingshao Hall was managed and arranged by her. It was only because Tong Huanyan had been in seclusion for the past few years that Elder Chong was temporarily in charge of it. Elder Chong stroked his beard and said with a grin, "Long time no see, Palm Master Tong's cultivation has improved quite a bit." "Thank you for the compliment, Brother Chong. It's been hard on you, Brother Chong." Tong Huanyan only gives a faint nod towards Han Yi and the others. However, his expression was slightly more respectful as he bowed to Elder Chong. After greeting Elder Chong, she raises her head to look at Di Mingju. After that, he slowly knelt down, prostrated himself on the ground and paid his respects. "Your servant greets the imperial monarch." Seeing that the emperor is well and has become the only immortal emperor, this servant is extremely gratified. However, before she could kneel down, she was dragged up by a flexible force. Towards her, Di Mingju shows a rare softness. Aunt Tong doesn't need to be so polite. Only then did Commander Tong stand up with a smile. Yu Yenran timely reaches out to support him. Commander Tong benevolently glances at her, his eyes filled with nostalgia. "In the blink of an eye, Yenran, you've grown up so much. Why haven't you come to the polar domain for a walk these past few years? Do you want to separate from our polar domain?" Chapter 3176. Yu Yenran bit her lips and couldn't help but look at Di Mingju. She forced a smile and said, "Tong Zhongling is joking. Di Jun once saved Yenran's life. I only feel grateful to polar domain, how can I be distant? It's just that Yenran has been in seclusion these past 2 years and hasn't been able to come out." Tong Huanyan was obviously very satisfied with her answer and gently patted her hand. "Good child, don't call me Tong Zhongling, just call me Tong Yi like Jun Shang. I watched all of you grow up. At that time both of you were still little children. Shuiyu was cute, I didn't expect that you two would become such a perfect couple." Yu Yenran's cheeks blushed and she showed a shy expression. She tenderly scolded, "Tong Yi, what nonsense are you talking about?" Tong Zhongling wanted to tease her a bit more. But she heard Di Mingju coldly say, "Tong Yi, be careful with your words, Ben Jun already has a fiancé." Tong Zhongling frowned and seemed to want to say something, but in the end she restrained herself. She revealed a smile and said, "Jun Shang, even if you have a fiancé, you can't treat Island Master Yu coldly. In the end, you two have been together since childhood, it's not something that others can compare to. Now that you've been estranged for many years, you should get along well and recover your childhood memories." As soon as she said this, Di Mingju didn't have time to say anything. Han Chujie was already stomping her feet. "Old woman Tong, what do you mean? Di Mingju already said that he has a fiancé, but you still encourage him to get along with other women. Are you planning to let him have a foot on 2 boats? Medicine Wong, what nonsense are you talking about?" Tong Huanyan's face sank. Di Jun is the king of polar domain, the supreme person in this world. Even if it's 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, it's still proper, let alone 2 or 3 women. Sure enough. I already knew that Di Mingju, you womanizer, is not a good thing." Han Chujie was about to explode with anger. She no longer cared about Elder Chang's obstruction. She pointed at Di Mingju's nose and scolded, "I see through you, you and Di Beixian are the same kind of goods. Flirting everywhere, half-hearted, fickle, shameless." Di Mingju's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. "Shut. This monarch will only have 1 wife and the polar domain will only have 1 mistress." Elder Chong coughed lightly. "Little Nine, watch your words. What 3 palaces and 6 courtyards? It's not like Jun Shang said that. Why are you scolding Jun Shang for no reason? Yes. We Junshang can't take the blame for this. Han Yi says, Medicine King, you mustn't go out and talk nonsense. Even Star Wolf couldn't help but mutter, especially not to your disciple. Tong Huanyan frowned and said, Han Chujio, don't be too disrespectful. Is this the attitude you should have when speaking to Junshang? Besides, when did an outsider like you get to meddle in the affairs of my polar domain? Usually when Han Chujio heard this sentence, she would have already exploded. But at this moment he proudly puffed out his chest. Outsiders? You call me an outsider? Ah, why don't you ask who Di Mingju wants to marry as his fiancé? Tong Huanyan can't help but turn her gaze towards Han Yi. Han Yi coughed lightly. Junshang's fiancé is Medicine King Darren's disciple. Han Chujio raises her round chin proudly. She swept past Tong Huanyan and looked at Yu Yenran. What qualifications does a pretentious woman have to be compared with his precious disciple? Han Chujio's face first shows a puzzled expression, then she suddenly stares at Yu Yenran. Why do you have the breath of a curse on your body? Chapter 3177. As soon as these words came out, the whole hall suddenly quieted down. Everyone, including Tong Huanyan, looked at Yu Yenran with a sharp gaze. Yu Yenran's heart panicked, her back was covered with fine beads of sweat. However, she still had a confused and aggrieved look on her face. What curse, aura? I don't know what you are talking about. Master Medicine, even if you hate me, you don't need to slander me like this, right? Han Chujio sneered, as long as it's related to curse, this old man can feel it clearly even in my sleep. The curse on your body is faint, but I will not make a mistake. It should be the soul-chasing curse, or the contraction curse, which is a kind of heartless curse. That's why the aura is so faint. Little girl, I advise you to tell us immediately who is using the curse technique around you. Hearing the words soul-chasing curse, Di Mingju's long eyelashes drooped, covering the cold light in his eyes. Yu Yenran's expression was still impeccable. But from the original confusion, it turned into anger full of injustice. She faced Di Mingju and coldly said, Di Jun Yenran came here this time to ask for the new Heaven Spirit detoxification pill. If the Polar Domain and Medicine King are not willing to give it, then forget it. Why do you have to humiliate me like this? Saying that Yenran has the breath of curse on her body, I don't even know what curse it is. How can I have anything to do with such a dirty thing? Since the Polar Domain doesn't welcome the people of my Linglong Island, then Yenran will leave. Tong Huanyan's face showed hesitation. Maybe Island Master, you accidentally got it outside. Medicine King, you can't be too arbitrary. Han Chujio sneered. Keep pretending. I may not be sure if I can recognize other things, but if I can't even distinguish whether the breath of curse was accidentally or deeply touched, then I, Han Chujio, will write my name backwards. Di Mingju, I warn you, the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill was refined by my disciple. I don't care if you give it to other people, but this woman and her Linglong Island, you are not allowed to give it to her. Otherwise, I will go to my treasured disciple and complain that you are too timing. After that, Han Chujio didn't wait for Di Mingju to answer. She turned around and disappeared into the distance. Yu Yenran bit her lips. Emperor Yenran bids farewell. Straightening her back, she slowly turned around and walked out of the hall. With every step she took, she longed for the man behind her to stop her. He wanted to tell her that he had misunderstood her, or ask her to take the Heaven Spirit detoxification pill away. However, there was nothing. There was nothing to persuade him to stay. Even when Yu Yenran could not help but turn her head. He heard a loud bang behind him. The door of Lingxiao Hall was closed and she was coldly shut out like an outsider. Two streams of tears rolled down Yu Yenran's cheeks as she clenched her fists tightly. Only after a long time did he turn around and leave. Inside the hall. As soon as Di Mingju senses Yu Yenran's aura disappearing, he immediately says, Ingmei, go investigate Linglong Island's movements during this period of time. Especially investigate whether they've had any contact with Leng Qingwan and Leng Yuexia. Ingmei stared blankly. Junshang, are you suspecting? Di Mingju sneered. The curse that was placed on Leng Yuexia's body was the soul-chasing curse. Ingmei's face turned cold. He quickly bowed and said, This subordinate obeys. Chapter 3178. Di Mingju closes his eyes, his slender fingers gently turning the ethereal ring on his finger. He suddenly says in a deep voice, "Go call Emo Jingqing over." A quarter of an hour later. Di Jun, you're such a great person, you should have no time to joke with your subordinates, right? Emo Jingqing shakes his dizzy head, showing a pitiful smile. His two thick eyebrows droop into a slanted eyebrow. Can we not indulge in fantasy? Opening the space barrier in 3 months was enough to kill me. Now you're telling me you want to shorten the time? Why don't you just kill me and be done with it? Di Mingju loosens his grip on the ethereal ring, slowly saying, "What if we use curse to temporarily create a passage?" Emo Jingcheng's expression stiffens. He looks up at the man sitting on the supreme throne in disbelief. After a long time he finally can't help but let out a hysterical roar. Di Mingju, have you lost your mind? Floating island, gravel mounds, garbage mountain. At this moment it's densely packed with people. Everyone is looking for something with their heads down. Ah, it's 100 feet long silk. I found this, haha. An excited cry comes from the garbage mountain. A tall and thin middle-aged man waves the contaminated and dirty silk in his hand, shouting excitedly. The people around him cast envious and jealous gazes at him. But it's just gazes. Because they've already experienced it before. Stealing other people's resources, passing them off as their own. They'll be beaten up by that she-devil until they don't look human anymore. What's more, they're desperately searching here not only for the rewards, but also because of what the she-devil said. I want to make an array disc, that can break the barrier of gravel mound. In the garbage mountain someone suddenly says, "That? Is what that she-devil said true? Can she really destroy the barrier of gravel mound?" This person's voice isn't heavy. But many people around him can't help but straighten up. How is that possible? Do you know how long the barrier of gravel mound has existed? If someone could break it, would we still be trapped here for generations? But Miss June can easily kill a cloud beast that even 100 of us at Crushed Stone Mound can't kill, Guodapeng suddenly said. The scene fell silent for a moment. Even if Guodapeng didn't mention it, everyone was already suspicious. That she-devil took out so many cloud bones and cloud beast hides as rewards. But where did these cloud bones and beast skins come from? Could it be that she killed it herself? How was it possible for a single person to kill so many cloud beasts? However, he had done such an inconceivable thing as annihilating the mountain split sect all by himself. What was impossible about killing a few cloud beasts? Could it be that she can really break the barrier of Stony Mound? Does that mean that we can also leave Crushed Stone Mound? Everyone murmured softly. The expression on his face was one of bewilderment, expectation, fear, and terror. But soon someone laughed dryly and said, what are we dreaming about? Everyone knows that Crushed Stone Mound only allows people to enter but not leave. How could it change? That's right. Even if that woman is strong enough to kill the entire mountain split sect, what's the use? As long as she can't escape when the mountain split sect's inner sect people come in, she'll still die. Chapter 3179. Just as they were talking, a scream came from afar. Everyone stop going through the garbage mountain. The materials for the array disc have been gathered. What? They're all gathered? I want to see what can be made from these waste materials. Quick, let's go take a look. That female demon is so arrogant. If she can't leave the gravel hill, her expression will be interesting. On the roof of the Zhang residence, Mu Yan was carefully processing the materials she had just collected. She turned a blind eye to the dense crowd below the roof. Li Weiran was sitting not far from her, teasing the little chick with a green foxtail grass. The little chick was crying from being bullied by Qi Huang in the Tianmochin space. It wanted to complain to its mother after it came out. However, it found that Mu Yan was busy processing the materials for the array disc and completely ignored it. She could only hold back her tears and turn to her blindfolded brother for comfort. Li Weiran was teasing the little chick with the foxtail grass. He said casually, "Even a chicken is so special and interesting among the things around Mu Yan." Guguji, the silly chick, made a crisp sound, squinting its eyes and tilting its head, looking like it was being praised. The ahog on its head was still standing up. However, the next sentence was heard from Li Weiran. "I don't know if you would taste good if I stewed you and ate you. Hey Mu Yan, do you want to try it?" Gugu dash. The little chick shivered, its face full of fear. It screamed and jumped into Mu Yan's arms. Mu Yan coldly glanced at the trembling little chick in her arms, not intending to comfort it at all. "Ah, stupid son of a chicken, now you know how scary that little pervert is, right? Who told you to go up to her every day? You won't even know when you'll be sold." Mu Yan concentrated and quickly finished the array disc in her hands. She jumped down from the roof of the Zhang residence and dashed towards the enchantment like a bolt of lightning. The crowd saw her move and immediately followed. In front of the enchantment is the storm wind blade belt. That woman actually rushed over just like that. Is she stupid? Ah, no one must have told that female demon how dangerous the storm wind blade belt. He deserved to die. Even a stupid woman like that wants to break the crushed stone ridge. Damn. Before the crowd could finish their mocking words, the girl in front of them casually threw out an array disc. Then the lethal tempest wind blade belt vanished. Disappeared. How was this possible? Everyone was dumbfounded. Like wandering ghosts, they followed the girl's figure and arrived in front of the thick gray fog. Everyone had a dazed look on their faces. At this time, Mayan has already put down the array disc in front of the enchantment. Then, according to the order of the 8 trigrams of Qianquan, she inlays the crystals into the eye of the array. Using this method to break the array is not like using the Shin musician's skill, Starry Sky Curtain, where one would either succeed or fail and the result would be clear in an instant. Using an array to break an array required a certain amount of time. Slowly, the energy gathered by one array formation would deplete the energy of another array formation. Finally, it would tear apart. After putting down the crystal, Mu Yan sits down cross-legged. She couldn't do anything about what happened next. All she could do was wait. But I'm hungry after spending the whole day. Maybe I should return to the ghost market first. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the tip of his nose smelled the fragrance of food. Chapter 3180. Mayan lifted her head and saw that Li Weiran had prepared food that smelled and looked good. He was looking at her with a smile. "Mayan, are you hungry? Look, I've prepared a new dish for you today. It's really delicious." Mayan looked at him suspiciously. "You've been acting strangely lately, haven't you?" Li Weiran tilted his head and revealed an innocent expression. "There's nothing I can do about it. When I first met you, I thought Mayan was a bad woman, so of course I had to be on guard. But the more I interacted with you, the more I was attracted to you. Unknowingly, I started to place you in my heart. For the people I care about, I, Li Weiran, am willing to give up my life, let alone wash my hands and cook soup." Stop. All right, you've won, all right?" Mayan was speechless. "I really can't tell when you're telling the truth and when you're lying." The young man in front of her pursed his lips and lowered his head. There was a faint smile on his lips as he picked out the fish and placed it in front of Mayan. The fragrant fish melted in her mouth. It was so delicious that Mayan, who had been starving for 2 days, couldn't help but reveal a satisfied expression. But this kind of delicacy and satisfaction didn't make her relax. Instead, it made her secretly vigilant. That was because Li Weiran was just too mysterious and unpredictable. Furthermore, Mu Yan always felt that there was a strange sense of familiarity to his body. It made her raise her guard a little, but because of this sense of familiarity, most of it instinctively dissipated. "Who are you? What's your purpose in getting close to me?" Mayan asked in the end. Li Weiran lifted his head and the curve of his lips deepened. "Mayan really wants to know? Then I'll tell you." Before he could finish, a trembling voice interrupted the conversation between the two of them. "Miss June, may I ask, do you really have a way to break the boundary of the gravel hill and bring us out?" Mayan frowned and looked up. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a weathered face. She hooked her lips and smiled. "I think you're mistaken about something. I broke the gravel hill boundary because I wanted to get out. I never said I would bring you out. Don't think too highly of yourself." The middle-aged man was stunned and his face turned red. Mu Yan added, "Of course, if the enchantment doesn't automatically repair itself when it breaks, you can follow me out if you want. But once you leave this place, whether you live or die, whether you can recover your strength, or whether you'll be thrown back into this rocky hill once more, all of that has nothing to do with me." This middle-aged man was obviously a cultivator who had been thrown in. At this time, hearing Mu Yan's words, his expression was sluggish and he couldn't help but chuckle. "That's right. Trash like us, even if we leave Gravel Hill, what can we do? Wasn't that a dead end? Haha. The other Xiuzha that once belonged to Floating Sky Island also showed pained and hopeless expressions. Compared to the natives who grew up in the rocky hill and never knew how vast and terrifying the outside world was, they were much weaker. These practitioners understand the meaning of Mayan's words even more clearly. So what if he left the rocky hill? They were still trash without cultivation, still at the bottom of the food chain. They might be able to survive in the rocky hill, but once they left this place they would definitely die. Someone couldn't help but sob softly. There were also people who punched the ground in frustration. Chapter 3181. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. Miss June, the situation on the floating island is treacherous and the situation is ever-changing. Miss is alone. I'm afraid that your actions will not change. If you don't mind, why not take some subordinates to run errands for you? Mu Yen turned her head and found that the person who spoke was the drunkard that Ruan Yang pushed over a few days ago. At this time there was still a wine pot in his arms, but it was obviously empty. On his bony face, a pair of eyes flickering with cold light stares at Mu Yen. Behind Ruan Yang, the dozen or so handicapped men also crawled to catch up. The little monkey, on the other hand, was being led by the butcher. He was awkwardly looking at Mayan with some fear. Even though everyone's focus was on Mu Yen, such a strange group of people still attracted a lot of attention. In particular, some men had already recognized Ruan Yang's identity. At this time they were pointing at her, revealing a wretched expression. But Ruan Yang didn't care at all. She pushed the drunkard in front of Mu Yen, cupped her hands and bowed deeply to her. Then she knelt down and kowtowed to her 3 times. This time, even with Mu Yan's calm and stone-hearted heart, she couldn't eat the food in her hands. She stood up and coughed softly. I promise to cure your injury. I will not go back on my words. After leaving the gravel hill, the smile on Li Weiran's face disappeared, and his thin lips tightened into a straight line. The eyes under the red silk coldly looked at Ruan Yang. But seeing that Mu Yen really didn't plan to continue eating, he regretfully put away the food on the ground. However, this subtle change was not noticed by Mu Yen or Ruan Yang. Ruan Yang raised her head and interrupted Mu Yan's words. I am grateful to Miss, not for my injury but for bringing hope to all of us. I kneel here and kowtow to Miss, hoping that Miss can listen to boss's request. Mu Yen frowned. Butcher continued, Miss June, please believe us. If you bring everyone in the gravel hill, there will only be benefits. Mayan sneers. You want me to believe that these selfish people who are used to showing off their bravery and ruthlessness will be used by me? Although Mu Yan's words were unpleasant to hear, everyone in Crushed Stone Hill looked at each other in dismay, unable to refute. Because of the special environment of the gravel hill, these people were more unreasonable and greedy than normal Xiuzha. In the beginning, in order to get out of the Crushed Stone Hill, in order to survive, they were naturally willing to bow and scrape to Mayan. But what if he regained his freedom and became stronger? How could they be willing to listen to a little girl's orders? It was already good enough that they did not bite back. It was simply a fantasy to expect them to repay their kindness. But now there was a chance to leave Gravel Hill. Of course, these people couldn't bear to give up. As a result, many of them revealed pleading expressions. Miss June, we are willing to listen to your orders. We only ask that you be merciful and take us with you. Yes. We are willing to be your slaves. If we dare to be ungrateful, let us be struck by lightning. There were even people who swore a deadly oath. But in her previous life, Mayan is used to the fickleness of the world, the fickleness of human nature. He had also stayed in the Cave of 10,000, the true hell. How could he be fooled by this appearance? Don't look at how sincere these people are right now. That's because even if they leave Crushed Stone Hill, they still have no power to fight back. Chapter 3182. But if she really let these selfish and greedy wolves follow her. Later, as long as there's a little bit of temptation, they would eat her up until there's nothing left. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a cold smile. But before she could say the words I refuse, the butcher smiles confidently. I know what Miss June is worried about. You're just afraid that these things will betray you at the sight of profit. But as long as our boss is here, this will never happen. What do you mean? Ruan Yang stands up and slowly says, because boss is a general. Hearing the two words, battle general, Mu Yan is still confused. Li Weiran, who is behind her, can't help but turn his head to look at the drunkard on the wheelchair. There's a look of interest on his face. And from the crowd in the rocky hill, there are already scattered cries of surprise. General? How is that possible? A general of the floating island is very precious and rare. Even if their hands and feet are broken and they lose all their spiritual power, as long as their consciousness is intact, it's something that any sect or family dreams of. How did they end up in the rocky hill? Only Mu Yan is full of confusion. Damn, what is this general? You guys say it's so powerful, can someone explain it to me? However, no one on the scene noticed Mu Yan's confusion. This was because they naturally thought that apart from the natives of Gravel Mound, there was no one who was born and raised there. As long as they come from the floating island, there's no one who doesn't know what a general is. Except for one person, Li Weiran. So Mu Yan hasn't finished cursing in her heart. She hears a familiar clear voice in her ear. Mu Yan doesn't know what a general is? Do you want me to explain it to you? If you want, then beg me. As long as Mu Yan begs me, I will definitely tell you everything I know. Mu Yan rolls her eyes and doesn't pay attention to him. Li Weiran's chuckle is heard again. Mu Yan, don't be angry. I'm just teasing you. After all, how can I bear to see you anxious and upset? Mu Yan's mouth twitches. Which eye of yours sees me anxious and upset? Li Weiran's voice continued to ring in his ears. Battle General is an extremely rare and special talent on the floating island. They usually have an incomparably vast sea of consciousness, and unlike the exclusive nature of the sea of consciousness of other cultivators, the sea of consciousness of a battle general is usually uniquely inclusive and extensible. In other words, the sea of consciousness of all battle generals can communicate with the consciousness of other cultivators and even ordinary martial artists. Mayan stares blankly, a rare look of astonishment appearing on her usually calm and collected face. Able to communicate with the consciousness of others? A person with such talent would be a heaven-defying existence on the battlefield of thousands of soldiers and horses. Li Weiran chuckled. But this isn't the scariest part about being a general. The cultivators on the floating island, except for those cultivators who accidentally failed to ascend, the other natives naturally had a secret door in their blood. Normally, this secret door doesn't have much to do with anything, but once a high-level battle general spreads out their divine sense and enters through that secret door, they can control these people's actions, causing their strength to increase in a short period of time, pouring in all their battle awareness and even making them live and die as they please. Mu Yan sucked in a breath of cold air. If that's the case, a battle general isn't just powerful, it's simply a heaven-defying existence. Chapter 3183. Li Weiran's voice carried a hint of teasing this time. Mu Yan, where did you live in the past? Could it be that the people around you are all country bumpkins who haven't seen the world? Just a few generals and you're so shocked? In reality, what I said can be done by generals, but there are many restrictions. On the floating island, the generals are divided into Army General, Cloud General, Imperial General, and Divine General. Army General can at most control mortals below the fasting stage and at most 100 people at a time. Cloud General can control cultivators below the Aurus core stage, but at most 1,000 people at a time. Above, Imperial General, the power of the general will have a qualitative leap. Imperial General can control cultivators below the tribulation stage, and they can control at least 10,000 people at a time. As for Divine General, they can control all cultivators below their level of cultivation, and the wider the sea of consciousness, the larger the number of troops they can control. There is no limit and there is no end to it. Can be said to be a true weapon of war. But until now, most of the generals that appeared on the floating island are only at the level of Army General. Occasionally there are a few Cloud Generals, who are carefully protected by the big families and sections. As for Imperial General and Divine General, they only listen to the Lan family empire. Li Weiran's unceasing voice answered many of Mu Yan's doubts. But her thoughts suddenly stopped. That's not right. This is not like Li Weiran's style at all. Turning to look, Mu Yan was instantly angered. It turned out that Li Weiran had taken the opportunity when she wasn't paying attention to take out an ancient book and read it out loud. This little pervert doesn't understand the system of generals on the floating island at all, and he's making a last-minute effort to act like a know-it-all in front of her. She doesn't know how this little pervert can recognize the words on the ancient book with the red silk covering his eyes. Li Weiran was reading excitedly to the ancient book when he suddenly saw a slender, white jade-like hand pressing on his page. The youth raised his head and met Mu Yan's cold smile. His voice couldn't help but pause. A country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world? You don't even know about a few generals? Hee hee. Li Weiran let out an innocent smile. With a wave of his hand he threw the ancient book out. The book in the air immediately combusted without any fire and disappeared completely. Not even a speck of dust was left. Mu Yan, what are you saying? Why don't I understand? You said I was mocking you? How was this possible? I'm loyal to you, Mu Yan, and the sun and moon can bear witness. I'm definitely not the one who ridiculed you, or you've misheard. Mu Yan resists the urge to chop him up. She ignores him and turns to look at the drunkard in the wheelchair. Who are you? If he's a champion, why would he be in the shattered rock hill? The drunkard sees that Mu Yan has been ignoring him, but he is not anxious at all. He just quietly waits. It wasn't until he heard Mu Yan's question that he chuckled and said, "The past cannot be recalled. What's the point of knowing such a boring thing as a name? If Miss doesn't mind, you can call me Wine Madman in the future." Mu Yan narrowed her eyes. What is your champion rank? Drunkard lowered his eyes. He can control the level of everyone in crushed stone. His dash. The sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air can be heard. How arrogant. Controlling everyone in crushed stone? Haha, does he think he's a king general? Chapter 3184. Although the people in the gravel mound are mortals who can't cultivate, there are tens of thousands of them. He actually said that he can control them? What a joke. The drunkard raises his head and looks at Mayan. Miss June, are you willing to believe me? Mayan doesn't comment. How can you prove that you have the strength of a imperial general? As they speak, there's a loud bang not far away. Immediately after, they see a big hole break open in the thick fog. A whistling gale that can blow a person away, wrapping in thick spiritual power, surges in from the hole. The people who were just discussing the topic of battle generals can't help but stare blankly at the hole. Some people have lifeless faces. Some people have tears of disbelief in their eyes. The enchantment is broken. Oh my God, am I dreaming? Can I really get out of the gravel mound? But what can I do even if I get out? I've long been a cripple without any cultivation. Pain, pleading, struggling, despair, everything converges into a hellish torment. Then, as the spiritual power pouring in becomes stronger and stronger, everyone feels a powerful energy fluctuation. Everyone can't help but turn their eyes to Mayan. She's absorbing spiritual power. The female devil's cultivation really hasn't been abolished. But how is that possible? If her cultivation hasn't been abolished, why would she be thrown into the gravel mound? The people below are discussing it, but Mayan doesn't take it to heart at all. Her dantian, her meridians, every pore of her body is frantically absorbing the surging spiritual power between heaven and earth. Her dried-up dantian is filled, and Qi Huang's familiar voice rings in her ears once again. The Tian Emochin in her hands becomes like her torso, and she can move it like an arm, inseparable. The powerful power that can make her feel at ease is returning little by little. This feeling is really great. Mayan takes a deep breath, turns around and grabs the little chick that's at the entrance of the fog cave, making a wah-wah-walked sound. She turns around and walks out of the gravel mound. Before she left, she placed one of the storage rings filled with ordinary cloud bones and cloud beast hides on the ground. She also throws a bottle of elixirs to Ruan Yang. The medicine inside can cure your injuries. Whether it's in the gravel mound or leaving here, live well. Miss June. Ruan Yang caught the medicine and called out anxiously, You don't intend to agree to boss's request? Mu Yan turns around and looks at her with a smile that isn't a smile. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. You've exposed your rare identities as champions and said that you'll help me control the people in crushed rock, but you've never said what you want. Usually in such a situation it was either the Virgin Mary who didn't forget to repay her kindness, or it was because she was asking for too much and was in great danger. We met by chance. Why should I get involved in this vortex for no reason? When the drunkard heard this, he raised his head for the first time and looked at her deeply. That pair of deep, bloodshot eyes were probing, but more than that, there was an uncontrollable pain and desire hidden deep within. This person looked frivolous and crazy, but he definitely had a blood feud. Mine thinks so. But what does this have to do with me? Thump. When Mu Yen is about to turn around and leave again, Ruinyang suddenly fell to her knees and kowtowed heavily towards her. Miss June, I beg you. Please. Chapter 3185. Those disabled strong men were kneeling and now they were desperately kowtowing. Because their spiritual meridians and dantian had long been destroyed, their foreheads hit the hard rocks and bones and blood gushed out, but they didn't seem to feel it at all. Ruinyang and the butcher all had a hunch. The girl in front of them must be the turning point they had been waiting for, and also their only hope for revenge. On the contrary, if they let her go, even if they left the gravel hill, they would definitely be discovered and eventually die without a burial place. The drunkard on the wheelchair quietly looked at Ruinyang and the butcher kneeling on the ground, and then struggled to support himself with his elbow on the wheelchair armrest, forcing himself to stand up. But the tendons in his hands and feet were destroyed, and standing up like this would only result in him falling to the ground awkwardly. Boss! Ruinyang screamed and rushed over to help him up, her eyes full of tears of despair. When the little monkey saw his mother and uncle like this, he suddenly bent his knees and knelt down as well. A pair of black and white eyes were full of tears, looking straight at Mu Yen and choked, Are you unwilling to help my mother because I lied to you? Then I'll apologize to you, okay? I'll give you all the money I earned. I can also work like a horse for you. Please help my mother. Mu Yen looked at the little child kneeling in front of her, and her heart suddenly softened. But thinking of how this kid deceived her, she expressionlessly didn't move. The little monkey cried as he walked forward on his knees. He took out the treasures he once cherished from his pocket. These are all for you. And this dagger, my mother said that my grandfather left it to her. She wanted to give it to you, but I couldn't bear to part with it, so I secretly hid it. Now I'll give it to you, okay? Before Mu Yen had time to speak, a dagger had already been stuffed into her hand. She could recognize that this was the gift that Ruinyang wanted to give her when she asked her to take the little monkey away. Mu Yen was about to return the dagger when she suddenly stopped, and her eyes suddenly widened. Her fingertips gently stroked the scabbard, and a purple flame was faintly discernible. Purple apex fire. This was a dagger that contained the purple apex fire. Mu Yen suddenly looked up at Ruinyang, and her voice almost trembled. What are your and your son's names? Full name. Ruinyang stared blankly for a long time before replying. My name is Shixin Rui. Everyone calls me Ruinyang. My son took my surname and his name is Shirshaoi. His nickname is Little Monkey. Shixin Rui. Shirshaoi. His surname was Shir. In Mu Yan's mind she vaguely heard Sly Thorn's voice. Purple apex fire. You are Shi Yuanqing. Shi Yuanqing, you're still alive. The fingers that are holding the dagger suddenly tighten. Mayan forces herself to restrain her hand from trembling. A woman with the same surname as his master. In his hand was a dagger that contained the same purple apex fire as his master. But how could there be such a coincidence in this world? She landed on the rocky hill of the floating island, and coincidentally found her master's descendant here? Mu Yan's gaze then turned towards the drunkard and the butcher. If Ruinyang was master's daughter, then who were these people? Would it be related to Shao Qi and eldest senior brother? But anyway, he couldn't just sit back and watch. Mu Yan couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Now, she seriously suspected that she had the unfortunate constitution of even if you don't cause trouble, trouble will automatically find you. Chapter 3186. Ruinyang asked apprehensively, Miss June, is there a problem with my name? Mu Yan takes a deep breath and says in a deep voice, I agree to your request. Ruinyang could hardly believe her ears. Didn't he reject her without any hesitation? Why did he suddenly agree after asking for her name? Ruinyang still wants to ask something, but she sees Mu Yan stretch out her hand and a small red bird appears in front of her. Wow, pretty sister. Qiuqiu can finally come out, I'm so happy. Little Phoenix intimately rubbed her face and chattered non-stop. Mu Yen stayed in this gravel hill for nearly a month and couldn't see Chi Huang and Little Phoenix. She missed them very much. At this moment she couldn't help but stroke its little red head. Chiu, can you do me a favor? Little Phoenix immediately nodded excitedly. Good, good. Pretty sister, tell me. Chiu will definitely do it well. Mu Yen points to everyone in front of her. I'll leave the gravel hill for a while. You look after them for me. Little Phoenix blinked his eyes. Look well? Are you telling them to stay put and not move? Maya nods. If you want to leave, do as you please, but if you want to take the opportunity to cause trouble, vainly attempt to harm others, or secretly leave through the enchantment without my permission, send them a fireball. Don't be polite. Before Little Phoenix could speak, someone in the crowd shouted in dissatisfaction. Why? Didn't you say that it was up to us whether we wanted to go out or not? Our legs belong to us. What right do you have to interfere? Mu Yen sneered. If I leave the gravel hill alone, of course you can do whatever you want. But if I were to leave with a large group of people, wouldn't I become the target of all the cultivators on the floating island if news of this leaks out? So, from now on you can either scram back to Crushed Stone Hill and continue hiding. Either you agree to be my errand boy, and I'll bring you out after I've investigated the situation outside. Everyone looked at each other. Some felt relieved while others felt indignant. However, they did not dare to resist and could only whisper, isn't it too overbearing? Mu Yen couldn't help but laugh. Overbearing? You want to talk about being domineering in this gravel hill where the strong prey on the weak? I was the one who broke the barrier around Gravel Mound. I was willing to let you out because of my kindness, but not letting you out is my right. Or do you think that I'm the merciful Virgin Mary who has descended upon this rocky hill to not only save you from your suffering but also clean up after you? Chirp. As if to match Mayan's overbearing declaration, Little Phoenix spits out a fireball. This fireball was extremely small, and it floated down in front of the man who had just muttered. The man's face was originally filled with disdain. Who knew that the fireball would suddenly explode, and with his keen senses honed from the dangerous environment of the gravel hill, he dodged at the last moment. However, he still felt a sharp pain in his arm. When he looked down, his face turned pale with fright. The pile of bones and stones on the ground had been completely incinerated. This fireball was obviously not aimed at him, otherwise he would have been burnt to a crisp. Leaving Little Phoenix to keep watch here, Mu Yen glanced at Ruan Yang, then turned and walked towards the entrance of the cave. As time passed, the hole in the thick fog became smaller and smaller. Obviously, Mu Yen did not really destroy the barrier of the gravel mound, and this barrier still had a self-repairing function. If Mu Yen left and never came back, they would be trapped in the gravel mound forever. Chapter 3187. Ruan Yang anxiously steps forward, wanting to say something but is stopped by the drunkard. Since we have chosen to believe in Miss June, we must believe in her till the end. Ruan Yang does not stop him. But another person appears in front of Mu Yen. Li Weiran. It was unknown when the blindfolded youth had put on his snow-white clothes again. His lips are red and his teeth are white, clear and flawless. Mu Yen's heart thumps. What does this little pervert want to do? Mu Yen, let's not leave the gravel mound, okay? Look at how interesting this place is. The people are simple, the cloud beasts are cute, the scenery is beautiful, and there are even idiots jumping out to play with us from time to time. Mu Yan's mouth twitches. Since you like it so much, you can stay here. But I want Mu Yen to stay with me. The youngster's voice is soft and hoarse, with a trace of childlike innocence. Mu Yen looks at him quietly for a moment, then says in a low voice, "But I refuse." After saying that, she doesn't wait for Li Weiran's reaction and walks into the fog. The youngster's lips are bright red and after a long silence he chuckles. His slender fingers gently brush his thin lips, and after a long time he murmurs 3 words. June Mu Yen, like a raving, like a lover's intimate whisper and like the distant call of the Grim Reaper. Mu Yen didn't expect that she would be surrounded as soon as she left the gravel mound, before she could see what kind of place the floating island was. When I received the news, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't expect that the boundary of the gravel mound would really be broken. The one speaking is a white beardless old man with a face full of wrinkles. His eyes are fixed on the hole in the middle of the fog and his eyes are full of disbelief and shock. Master, when the Luo Yun sect gave us this large area, their only requirement was that we must guard the gravel mound well, and not allow any refugees or sinners to come out. Now that the boundary of the gravel mound has been broken, and there are people coming out, if the Luo Yun sect knows, I'm afraid that we will all be slaughtered. Hearing the subordinate's words, the old man's face shows fear. He suddenly looks at Mu Yen, gritting his teeth. You broke the boundary of the gravel mound? Who are you? However, Mu Yen looked at the somewhat familiar clothes on their bodies and narrowed his eyes. You guys are from the mountain-splitting sect? How did she know we were from the mountain-splitting sect? This woman should be a soul cultivator who was thrown into Crushed Stone Hill, right? But everyone who enters Crushed Stone Mound should be trash without any cultivation. How can her aura be so strong? There are also people who yell at Mayan. Which sect did you come from before? Don't tell me they don't know that as long as a soul cultivator is thrown into Crushed Rock Mound, no matter how talented they were before or how illustrious their family background is, they must accept their fate and can't leave for the rest of their lives? Otherwise, all of you will become the common enemy of the 3 sects, 6 clans and 8 sects. From then on, even if all of you are still alive, you will be like a rat on the street and you will never have a day of peace. The Mountain Split sect master also calmed down at this moment. Taking a deep breath, he stared at Mu Yen with his hardy eyes. To be able to reach the 8th rank of the mortal cultivation realm at such a young age, you do have some talent. It's no wonder that you're unwilling to stay in the Shattered Rock Hill for the rest of your life. But girl, I advise you, if you want to live well and live for a long time, you'd better obediently return to the gravel mound. With your ability, even if you can't use spiritual power inside, you're still invincible. Isn't it good to be a tyrant inside and dream of imperial power? Chapter 3188. Mayan sneers. I have always politely declined deceiving myself and others. What's more, how can a mere gravel hill satisfy my appetite? If I want to dominate, I need the entire floating island to be worthy of it. Hiss. Everyone from the Mountain Split sect sucked in a breath of cold air. Where did this little girl come from? How dare she speak so arrogantly? Truly overestimating the immensity of heaven and earth. I think this matter is very easy to solve. The Gravel Hill's enchantment is already repairing itself, and only this little girl has come out. As long as we kill her, everything will naturally return to normal. The old man coldly glanced at Mu Yen. This old man saw that you are young, so I gave you a way out. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame us for being impolite. Set up the formation. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone from the Mountain Split sect suddenly dispersed. Immediately after, everyone's eyes lit up. Powerful spiritual power surged in the air. Then something miraculous happened. A ferocious beast appeared beside every mountain-splitting sect disciple. These ferocious beasts were all formed from pure energy. However, it opened its bloody mouth and roared like a real beast. The powerful aura emanating from their bodies was almost on par with the cultivators around them. Summon beast. Mu Yan's mind instantly remembers what Qi Huang had said. The floating island was created by a powerful summoner who defied the natural order of the world. Mu Yan couldn't help but be speechless, because this was a kingdom created by the summoners. So most of the practitioners inside were summoners? However, when the Mountain Split sect master summoned an enormous golden-furred lion, Mu Yan's expression became incomparably solemn. She did not know what the old man meant by 9 mortal cultivation stages. However, the people present all had extremely high cultivation bases. The white-faced old man, who was also the head of the mountain-splitting sect, was at least at the peak of the tribulation passing stage or even higher. That's because when the spirit gathers in his eyes, Mayan can see a piece of bone at the back of his neck faintly glowing, absorbing the immortal qi of heaven and earth, which is completely different from spiritual qi. In other words, this elder has already forged the immortal bone. Mu Yen had forged quite a few immortal bones and could easily absorb the spiritual qi and immortal qi of heaven and earth. However, the time she took to transcend the tribulation was too short. He didn't even have the time to master some of the more powerful divine abilities and sword techniques. As for how to use immortal energy, he was a complete rookie. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost so badly in his battle with Ning Su. At this moment, other than the mountain-splitting sect leader who had already forged the immortal bone, there was no one else in the mountain-splitting sect. There were also a dozen cultivators who had reached the tribulation passing stage like her. Not to mention these powerful summoned beasts. Mu Yan exhaled softly. I'm afraid she has a tough battle to fight. However, her lips quickly curled into a disdainful smile. With a flick of her wrist, the Tianmo appears in her hand. It was just a battle. Did they really think that she was afraid? He placed his fingertips on the zither and was about to start playing. Suddenly, a streak of white light shot towards Qin. Immediately after, Mu Yan felt a strong force coming towards her. The Tianmo in his hand unexpectedly flies out. Mayan is startled and abruptly looks up. On a hill not far away, a young man dressed in white with red silk over his eyes stood there quietly. The cold evening wind made his clothes and hair flutter in the wind. The Tianmo that was originally in his hands slowly descends in front of him. Mu Yan's heart sank bit by bit. Li Weiran, it was you who informed the mountain-splitting sect to block the exit. Chapter 3189. What Mu Yan said wasn't a question, but a resolute and decisive affirmation. The youth on the hill slowly turns his head. The pair of eyes under the red silk seems to be looking at her, but also as if he wasn't looking at anything. His thin lips curve up. Jun Mu Yan, I've played with you in the gravel hill for so long that I almost forgot that I'm here to kill you. Just now, why didn't you promise me to stay in the gravel hill? Maybe you could live a little longer this way? The youth's slender fingers pluck the Tianmo. The Tianmo doesn't give him any response, only making unpleasant noises. Li Weiran chuckles, but it seems that I still can't steel my heart to kill you with my own hands, Mu Yan. So, I can only confiscate your most important weapon and let these people from Mountain Split Sect do it for me. Li Weiran secretly transmits the last sentence to her ears. But Mu Yan, don't worry. You're the most interesting woman I've ever met in my life. After these filthy trash kill you, I'll definitely cut them into 8 pieces to avenge you. From now on, I'll always keep a place for you in my heart. Mu Yan, are you happy? Happy, your sister happy. Mu Yan coldly looks at this dead pervert, not saying anything. When she first met Li Weiran, she was indeed on guard and vigilant. But slowly, Li Weiran no longer showed any signs of aggression. And that faintly discernible familiar aura on his body made Mu Yan unconsciously relax her vigilance. She had really forgotten that this young man had been full of malice towards her from the very beginning. Now that there's a wolf in front and a tiger behind, she's afraid that she'll be in danger. Damn Jun Mu Yan. Where did you provoke this pretty boy from? Qi Huang's furious voice resounded in her ears. You idiot woman, this lord only didn't look after you for a month, and you're already outside flirting with bees and butterflies. This pretty boy can't even compare to that trash Luo Yunxiao. What do you see in him? Mu Yan, Qi Shaohuang, I beg you, ancestor, to spare me. Now that my life is at stake, you're actually only concerned about whether I provoked a pretty boy or not. Can you get the Tianmo back for me? Qi Huang coldly snorts. Of course I can. Hey, damn. Who is this kid? Why is the connection between Shenzun and the Tianmo's divine sense cut off? Mu Yan's heart thumps, her brows tightly knit together. As Qi Huang spoke, the people from the mountain-splitting sect and their summoned beast had already approached aggressively. Now that she doesn't have the Tianmo and Li Weiran is eyeing her like a tiger watching its prey. It could be said to be a hopeless situation of certain death. But in such a hopeless situation, Mayan's unruly nature is aroused from the bottom of her heart. She laughed coldly, and her gaze swept past everyone in the mountain-split sect, finally landing on the white-clothed youth. You want me to die? Why don't we all perish together? As soon as he finished speaking, the crystal-clear 7 Absolutes sword slowly appeared. Light flowed on the sword. Between heaven and earth, specks of light, like fireflies, gathered toward the 7 Absolute sword. Gradually they converged into a magnificent meandering galaxy. Li Weiran's back suddenly straightened and the contented expression on his face froze. Even with his eyes covered, one could see how shocked he was. He widened his eyes like that through the blood-like red silk. Looking at the isolated and helpless girl below, he lightly brandished the 7 Absolute sword in his hand. Chapter 3190. 1 second remember. LoveNet, providing you with wonderful reading. Boom. A huge ravine was directly split open on the ground. The summoned beast that was fiercely pouncing towards Mayan vaporized in a flash, disappearing without a trace. In the sky, purple-gold thunderclouds gradually gathered at an unknown time, hanging high above the girl's head. Making a crackling sound, Li Weiran stood there blankly for a long time before suddenly muttering, "The power of law. It's actually the power of the 5 elements. A crossing tribulation cultivator using the power of law on the floating island. Jun Mayan, just how many more surprises can you give me?" Compared to Li Weiran's shock, the people of Mountain Split Sect only felt their blood run cold. What about their summoned beast? Why did that girl disappear with just a light swing of her sword? The Mountain Split Sect's head looked at Mayan with eyes full of shock. Who are you? What remarkable ability did you use just now?" The girl in front of him didn't answer. A pair of inky black eyes that were bottomless slowly dyed with a trace of bright red. The spiritual power of heaven and earth unconsciously gathered around her. It curled her long hair, spreading out in the air like ink. At this very moment, even with the mask covering her, the girl's entire body revealed a strange and flirtatious temperament. Then, under the frightened and despairing gazes of everyone in Mountain Split Sect, 7 absolute swords made a second slash. "Jun Mayan, calm down. You can't use the power of law anymore. Damn it. I shouldn't have taught you to use the power of law at the beginning." She heard Qi Huang's anxious shouts. Mayan could also feel that something was wrong with her body. Every inch of the meridians in her body was burning. There seemed to be countless thorns pulling at her dantian and her heart. Even the soul in her body was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. And her body was already completely out of control. Her consciousness was clearly clear, and she could even hear Qi Huang's curses and the indistinct sound of thunder in the sky. But her hands and feet seemed to have their own consciousness, unscrupulously making a second slash towards the people of Mountain Split Sect. Whoosh! Wherever the sword aura went, the ground was once again split into 2 halves. The thick and clear spiritual power that was originally floating in the air had all turned into murderous sharp blades at this moment. It swept towards everyone in Mountain Split Sect. Swish, swish, swish. Blood gushed from their necks. One by one, the bodies fell to the ground, dying with everlasting regret. The last thing the mountain-splitting sect leader saw was a headless body that was continuously spurting out fresh blood from the severed neck. And he only recognized it a moment before he lost consciousness. It was his headless body. The mountain-splitting sect was annihilated. Not even a single cultivator above the tribulation passing stage was left behind. Even though there were still some disciples left in the sect. This third-rate sect would forever be buried in the long river of history. And on the floating island, only the mountain-splitting sect was guarding the crushed stone hill. For a long time after that, no one knew that the boundary of crushed stone hill had been broken. The beasts locked inside were about to awaken and turn the world upside down. But at this moment, the culprit who was about to cause this upheaval was standing stiffly on the spot with a pale face and a head full of cold sweat. The clouds in the sky grew thicker and thicker, turning the area into a pitch-black night. From time to time, purplish-gold lightning would flash in the thick clouds, emitting crackling sounds. It was as if a storm of lightning was brewing. "Jun Mayan, enter the space of the Tianmo Qin." Qi Huang shouted anxiously, "You've triggered the second heavenly punishment in such a short period of time. This time, the lightning tribulation will be more than 10 times stronger than the previous one. You definitely won't be able to survive it. Hurry up and come in, I'll protect you." Chapter 3191. At this time, Mu Yan doesn't want to be brave, she also wants to listen to Qi Huang enter the Tianmo Qin's space. However, whether it's her body or consciousness, she can't control it at all. The tearing pain in her body caused the veins on her forehead to throb. Boom! The heavenly thunder that has been brewing in the air for a long time finally falls. Jun Mu Yan. Qi Huang roars, no longer hiding his breath, and is about to rush out of the Tianmo Qin's space. However, at this moment, a pure white figure streaks through the air and lands in front of Mu Yan. The red silk covering her eyes was as beautiful and dazzling as blood. Mu Yan's eyes widened slightly. It's Li Weiran. What is he doing here? In the next moment, the youth raises his slender hand and covers her head, just like how he usually covers her from the wind and sand of Mount Yunluo. A dazzling white light, accompanied by a deafening thunder, explodes above her head. Mu Yan only feels a violent impact on her head, and the ugly mask on her face shatters into two halves, falling to the ground. Her forehead is cut by the aftermath and beads of blood trickle down the bridge of her nose. The heavenly thunder that is 10 times stronger than the one in the Shuzhen continent fell, and she actually only suffered such a small injury? Mu Yan suddenly looks up. She sees that the hand that Li Weiran used to protect her head is already badly mutilated, and the eerie white bones can be seen. Mu Yan's first reaction is that this little pervert has gone crazy. He was clearly the one who wanted to kill her, and he's also the one who took her Tianmochin. Why did he come to take the heavenly thunder for her now? Mu Yan looks up and finds that Li Weiran's expression is even more shocked than hers. He tilts his head slightly, looking at her in confusion, and then at his hand that has been burned full of holes by the heavenly thunder. He doesn't seem to understand why he would help Mu Yan block the heavenly thunder. Li Weiran looks down at her in a daze. The girl in front of him is pale, her hair is messy, and her face is covered in sweat. But even if she has fallen into such a difficult and hopeless situation, it couldn't hide her gorgeous face and her blazing, untamed peach blossom eyes that would never be tamed. Mu Yan looks up at him, her eyes filled with doubt and vigilance. Li Wei, what do you want? The girl's voice was hoarse from the pain, and it was almost inaudible in the roar of thunder. But Li Weiran looked as if he was shocked. He abruptly turned around and disappeared. Li Weiran. Mayan yells, "Give me back my zither." As soon as her voice falls, the Tianmochin flies over from afar and falls into her arms. Mu Yan didn't have the time to think about what this pervert Li Weiran was thinking. But thanks to him, he finally regained control of his originally immobile body. His fingers were still numb from the pain, and his palms were covered in layers of sticky cold sweat. But Mu Yan plucked the strings without hesitation and played a smooth melody. Qi Huang, Mayan, quickly enter the Tianmochin's space. No. Mayan plays while answering Qi Huang's question. The Tianmochin is still not in its complete form. If the heavenly punishment thunder falls on the Tianmochin, it will be destroyed and the Tianmochin space will also disappear, right? Qi Huang clenches his teeth. Not having the Tianmochin is still better than not having a life? Mu Yan smiles absent-mindedly. I can live without the Tianmochin, but Qi Huang, what about you? Without the Tianmochin space, can you still live? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.